Okay, so good morning, Steve. This is Steve Waldman, and I'm Joe Reingold. I'm interviewing him here today on March 15th, 2023. Nice to see you.
Nice to see
So,
you too.
so Steve, tell us a little bit about how you became the Federation president. What led up to that? What were you involved in before all of that?
My first involvement really in the community was the Federation in 1983. Jackie and I, excuse me one second. That was my dog. Bella, can we start this over?
Sure, go ahead.
Bella, out. And close it all the way.
Okay, we can start it over.
Can we start over?
Yeah, it's all right. She'll edit it out. It's fine. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with your Jewish activities and with Federation.
Great. My initial activity with the Federation came on a 1983 Zachor mission. Jackie and I got a letter from Harvey Weiner saying that for $1,000, we could go to Israel. And the only requirement we would have when we return would be that each one of us would have to solicit 10 donors or potential donors who had been rated, if you will, or the potential to give what the Federation felt was at least $1,000. So Jackie and I were already in campaign, already soliciting people who were giving $1,000. And so we said, this doesn't make any sense, and went to my uncle, Bill Waldman. Bill Waldman at the time was a past officer of the Federation and had been extremely involved for a number of years. And I went to Uncle Willie and I said, take a look at this and tell me what you think. And I said, how could this be possible? And he said, it's definitely possible, son. I said, well, what will happen? What do they expect? He said, you'll see. And never again did I expect my career with the community to take off specifically as a result of that mission. There were 34 of us, I think, on the mission. The next year, they asked Jackie and me to take a group much smaller, I think 17, for a second Zachor mission, and that was it. That got me going, very involved in missions. I've actually been on 11 missions to Israel, been to Israel 12 times, and we can talk about that in a minute, but those were some of the great experiences for me because I really enjoyed working on and helping to lead those experiences.
That is wonderful.
Jackie was diagnosed, interestingly, in 1992 with multiple sclerosis. And I was on the track to become an officer and president of the Federation, and I had to pull back. Basically said I was not going to be able to do that. As we got our arms around her illness, it became evident that it would be okay for me to go ahead and move forward. So I got back on track at that time.
What years did you serve?
Served from 1999 to 2001, November to November.
Right. And can you remember some of the various leaders that were there and helping you along the way in your tenure?
Oh, sure. Don Schaefer preceded me. Andrea Weinstein preceded him. Jimmy Hogue was my vice chair. Buddy Rosenthal after that. Larry Schoenbrunn, Carol Aaron. We had a large myriad of folks that were very active, very dedicated. My idol was always Harold Kleinman. I felt that his brain was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And he really turned me on to what serving the community was about, especially serving the community with no expectation for anything in return.
That's wonderful. What was the relationship between the Federation that you can remember and some synagogues, but also other Jewish organizations at the time?
Well, I think we were pretty strongly related to all of our constituent agencies and our beneficiaries. The JCC ran into some trouble when I was, actually, let me back this up. The JCC decided to build or buy a campus in the north during my term. Kenny Goldberg was a JCC president, and he and I felt that we should really try to help engage the northern community. Circumstances beyond either of our control ended up making that not as positive an event as it could have been. JCC ran into some financial troubles a little bit later, but we were very definitely right there with them, supported them, because the Federation had to vote in favor of the J doing that in order for it to happen. The other organizations, right then, Ellen Tuck was in town, starting to do a bunch of things with Legacy Senior Communities, which had been Golden Acres. So many things were happening at the beginning of my presidency that were very focused on the community. Back to the synagogues. I think our relationship with the synagogues was okay. It wasn't, in my opinion, great. During my term, I established a leadership development group for the synagogues, and the commitment of the synagogues was to send 2 or 3 leaders to our leadership development. It was a 1.5-year program, and at the end of the program, the Federation was going to support a mission to Israel for those people. Interestingly, the program went very well, and I'll be very frank in saying this, post me, leadership was not as focused on making the relationship as strong as I thought it should be. So we ended up sending a few people to Israel, but no mission took place. And I was disappointed in that because I was a strong advocate and financial supporter of that program. Again, as it is now, we're much, much better with the synagogues as far as our relationship is concerned. We also had the Rabbinical Council, who at the time was, I can't recall, may have been Stefan Weinberg, who was the chairman. And we met with them regularly and kept them up to speed on what was going on in the Federation and took their input and brought it back to our board. So we tried to develop a strong relationship. There just wasn't a financial component. And I think that's what the synagogues wanted, which really never came to fruition at that time.
Did the Rabbinical Council start under you, or was it already formulated?
No, it was there before me. I inherited it, and again, tried to strengthen it, as did my successors. But I'm kind of out of that loop at the moment, so I'm really not sure how strong that is. But it was very strong. We met with them once a quarter.
Did you also have the Education Council under you at that time? The educational leaders in the community?
Education was there, the Jewish Education Department, and that was very important. During that time period, they moved to the JCC, had their offices and began to get strength. A lot of things were happening during my term. The discussion about the combination of Akiba and Yavna into a single campus was being discussed. Initially, there was talk about bringing it on the Federation campus, and I chaired a committee. This may have been before I was president. I chaired a committee having conversations about that. Took a long time. You know, some things just take time.
Right, right. Can you recall some coalitions that you had with other organizations outside of the Jewish community?
I don't really recall a lot of coalitions outside the community. During that time period, we had a lot of things going on at the Federation. I was very focused on Federation work. Also at the time, I was 49 years old when I became president. So I had a complete career, fully invested in it. So I had 2 full-time jobs. And so from my own perspective, it was difficult enough for me to keep the plates moving, or a ball in the air, if you will, to do that.
Can you recall any significant local, national, or even international events that went on during your era?
Well, I would say that the most significant national incident would be September 11, 2001. That was fairly significant and a shock to the world, remains a shock to the world, and it has changed our entire world. Federation was very supportive of anything we could do at that point to help with regard to the families in New York, those who perished, those who were family members of those who perished. It was a horrific time. And yeah, that's just something that we'll all remember, and I think has to be the most significant event that took place.
Mhm. So now go back to Israel. What was the relationship between the Federation and Israel, and how supportive was the community for Israel?
I think the community was very supportive of Israel, and I think the Federation was supportive. As I indicated back in 1983, we really started or rebuilt or began to rebuild the missions program. So we took a number of people during the previous years, during my years, to Israel. In fact, the Minyan mission took place in 1995, February of 95. Jeff Seymour and I led that mission. There were, you may recall, us at 435 people. El Al airplane arrives in Dallas, Texas. It was a phenomenal experience. And we had 10 buses, 4 different tracks, and it really helped our community solidify around Israel even more than they had been. I remember sitting next to Bibi Netanyahu at one of the events. He was speaking to the group, and he looks at me and says, "Steve, are all these people really from Dallas, Texas?" And I laughed and said, "Yes, believe it or not, Dallas is very supportive." We got to see Yitzhak Rabin. That was in February. He was assassinated the following October. It was a very special time. And I think our community strongly supported Israel. I will say that UJA, which was the national organization's name at that time, was a little disappointed that only a little less than a third of our campaign revenue went to Israel. But we had needs in Dallas that were so significant that the community felt that we needed to support home. And I think in retrospect, I'm very glad we did, because it helped strengthen our community in Dallas. But Israel was always important, I think, to everyone who was involved in the Federation movement, and still is.
Have you seen a lot of that continue throughout these days? Is it still going on? That type of support, that type of the missions?
I think it's changed. Politics have changed. The world has changed. I think that a lot of people sometimes, and this is Steve Waldman's personal opinion, can't see the forest for the trees. And I think that we're sometimes being short-sighted. Israel is so important to American and international Jewry with what's happening in the world, anti-Semitism burning here in America and around the world. We have to have Israel to show our strength, and frankly, the law of return, to be able to know that if things continue to progress and don't change and don't get better, or we lose support of those non-Jews in America who support us presently, who knows where we'll be. So I just think some people are short-sighted politically. I try to be apolitical in that regard, and to recognize that things happen, changes will take place, but we still have to support Israel.
Specifically, can you think of some more changes that you experienced during your tenure in Dallas itself and also in the Federation?
In Dallas, I think we experienced and continue to be amazed at the growth of the Jewish community. It's always been a little unfortunate that we still raise the same amount of money 20 years later than we did then, and that we have even fewer donors today than we had then. But we have a strong donor base, and that donor base is changing. You know, when I look back at the big donors when I was the president, they're all gone, but they've been replaced by a new group of donors who are strongly focusing on Israel. And my hope is that as that group, of which I'm at the lower end but still a part, that group is going to have to be replaced, and we're starting to see it. So that was always amazing to me. The community is growing, and forgot your second question.
No, just how Dallas had changed, or or things that you saw in the Federation that you experienced that changed.
The Federation did change dramatically right after I was chairman, our president. We moved to a chairman-president position where instead of the executive vice president, we had a president and then a chairman of the board. We also reduced the size of the board significantly. Prior and during my term, a past board chair was forever a board member. When I became a past board chair, I had a 2-year term and that was it. I was gone. And I guess it's okay for me to say what I want to say on this. I was disappointed that the Federation didn't allow the past chairmen to either become lifetime or something, so they could continue to offer their own. The leadership at that time felt our board was too big. Our chairmen and women were older. I think I was the youngest chair of the Federation to that time. I don't think any chair had ever been as young as me. And we had a lot of older chair people, and I guess they felt, well, they were older and we needed new blood and new thinking. I've always felt that the more wisdom you can bring in the room, the better off you are. And that did not take place from the Federation's perspective, but the Federation is doing fine as it is. And I moved on to other environments and other activities within the community.
Very good. In relation to your time there, what would you say you were, if you can pinpoint, what were you the most proud
of? During my term, and I'm glad you said time there, because I think I'm maybe most proud of arranging for us to take a trip to Cuba. But that was in 1995 in February. 24 of us took a chartered plane to Havana with the permission of the State Department to do our first Cuba trip. It was a humanitarian trip. We brought all sorts of clothing and medicine and soccer balls and anything we could think of that the people within the organizations that were there could use. There were 2 primary Jewish communities in Cuba, about 1,400. We got to see them all. It was a fabulous experience, and I felt really reaching well beyond what we had done before. Another thing that we did during my term was Larry Schornbrand led an effort to revitalize and rethink our campaign. Not as much came out of that as I had wished, but it was a strong effort to bring the community together to rethink how we were raising money. And again, during my time at the Federation, the Minion Mission was, of course, a major happening for the Federation. While I was chairman, 9/11, even though it was just before my chairmanship ended, it was a lot of business as usual, trying to determine how we allocated funds. It was before we started using the P&A based upon specific programming rather than similar to your gift the year before or our gift the year before. And I'm glad that changed. But overall, I think it was a good experience for me. I think the Federation didn't lose any ground. I'm not so sure how much ground the Federation gained, to be frank, but I felt good about my term.
I just thought of something. Was the foundation already formulated when you were
Thank you. During the Federation, my presidency, we separated the foundation.
Okay.
And that was primarily done, interestingly, to protect the assets of the foundation from the third-party lawsuits, if anything that the Federation did. It was set up in a way where the officers of the foundation were always going to be the current president of the Federation, which then became the chair, the immediate past, and the chair or president-elect. There were 5 board members of the foundation board, and that was to protect the Federation from the foundation, if you will, and I'll laugh and say going rogue. Unfortunately, in my personal opinion, years later, the foundation did change its thinking, and a federation past president, wasn't a president, but it was a past chairman voted with the foundation members, trustees, to separate the foundation fully from the federation. Richard Massman did a fabulous job in setting it up. So did Harold Kleinman. They were both, as was I, very upset that took place. Again, we weren't controlling them, but we did feel that they should remain a supporting foundation, and a foundation totally dedicated to the federation, because the money that the foundation had came from the federation. So that did happen, that did take place, and time will tell how well that continues. Although I believe now foundation leadership is really back on a good track with the federation leadership. Personalities sometimes get in the way of doing the right thing, but we seem to be in pretty good shape now.
That's good to hear. Are there any other special experiences or any stories or anything during your tenure that you would like to share with us that you haven't shared yet?
Yeah, my father passed away, as I said, during the, I don't know if I said, my father passed away on, look at me, June the 11th, excuse me. My father passed away on June the 11th of 2001, 90 days before 9/11. And that was obviously a very traumatic experience for me, for my family. And I had no choice but to continue to operate as chair. That was a very difficult time for me personally. Something else that I think is very interesting, and since 20 years has passed, I think it's okay to share it. My predecessors decided that the Texas Jewish Post was not an adequate representation of the needs for a newspaper, a Jewish newspaper in the city of Dallas. And for that matter, Fort Worth, but it was more focused on Dallas. So a committee was formed, another organization came in, and the Federation actually supported an organization called the Dallas Jewish Life. It came in, I was the chairman or president when it was the inaugural issue of the Dallas Jewish Life, although I had nothing to do with what took place prior. So what ends up happening was that I took a lot of the community heat for bringing on a competitive or a competing newspaper. During that time period, Jimmy Wish decided to take on the Federation, and every week on his Friday, well, it was a Thursday paper, every week he would write an article. And his article had to do with the Federation and how bad it was, and how terrible it was, and how great the Texas Jewish Post was. And the group had gone to TJP before, asking them to add color, asking them to do some different things. Jimmy Wish was not interested. And as a result, it was a very disheartening time for me. That was probably the worst thing that happened to me during my term. Every week there's an article, and the whole community is reading the article. And it was funny because we advertised as a business, Waldman Brothers, in the TJP for 50 years. We still do. And Jimmy Wish, at the end of every article or during the article, would always say, but Steve Waldman is a nice guy. And that just really frustrated me personally. 4th of July in the year 1990, no, 4th of July of 2000, he called me up and he kept me on the phone for 3 hours, chewing me up and down. And I just never forget what a shame that was, because it was unnecessary. And it turns out that the Dallas Jewish Life didn't make it, and that the Texas Jewish Post has done a great job in turning around and being a much better paper representing what's going on in the community. But that was a difficult time for me. I hate to talk about negative things, but sometimes those are the things that stick with you. What is it? Caesar or something lives after you. The good is often.
Good men do, yeah. The evil men do live after them.
The good is often interred in their bones. So let it be with Jimmy Wish. So that was it. Not terrible. I'm still alive and healthy to talk about it, but
That's
it does stick in my mind. And I think my board suffered because they knew what was going on and they didn't like it any more than I did. That was an unusual time.
Well, like you said, the result is that the paper is much better.
It is.
That's
So
good.
good did come out of it for sure. And I really appreciate all the folks over at the TJP for recognizing that those changes needed to be made.
Okay. So in summary, what are you working on now? What are you involved in? I know you're retired, but what are you doing?
I chaired the Holocaust Museum board for 3 years during the fundraising and planning period of the museum. That was a great experience on my part. I'm still on that board. I'm a life member of that board. Other than that, I am all but retired. I am currently helping the JFS, Jewish Family Service, in a soon to be announced campaign for a new facility. And that's my community involvement at the moment. I really do want to step back and take some time away. Retirement's a good thing. Jackie and I are really enjoying that new experience for me. And so the JFS, for the time being, will be the only thing I really get involved in. And once that campaign is done, I doubt for a while I'll do anything other in the community, other than continue to be a donor and support the organizations that Jackie and I support. But I'm hoping to take some time off and reflect and enjoy my children, grandchildren, and my sweet wife.
Well, we certainly wish you well. And do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, I really appreciate you doing this, Joe. This is a very nice thing to try to record the history of our community, and by reaching out to the Federation presidents, I think that will tell a great story. I'm so supportive of all these organizations that we have, strongly believe in the continuity of the Jewish people, and hope that for years and years to come, we will be a strong community, and that the Dallas community will continue to make a major difference in our world.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you for all of your contributions. We really appreciate your time and your energies and your efforts. Send our best to your family.
Such a pleasure. Same to you.
Okay.
Y'all be well and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.